Why do the Sith have red lightsabers? It is said when a user falls to the dark side, it corrupts them beyond recognition, purging the light from them, twisting them to the will of the dark side. And what's even worse, it makes them bald.
Could I put it back on?
But what's easily the most notable features is their red lightsabers. But have you ever wondered as to why all Sith have them? Well, we have two answers for this in canon and legends. But to fully understand these answers, we need to understand what gives a lightsaber its color and its history. As we know, most lightsabers were powered by kyber crystals. This helped provide the saber with a concentrated beam of energy. And these crystals could be found throughout the galaxy, however primarily being found on very few locations scattered across the cosmos. But before they were found and chosen by a Jedi, the crystal was noticeably void of any color. However, once they bonded with a Jedi, they would change the color that matched its user's personality and the crystal itself. Yet, with that said, if it matched the personality of its users, wouldn't it just match the Sith and therefore give it a red blade? Well, no. Which brings us to our first answer in canon, which is the fact that kyber crystals cannot naturally be red. Instead, it only occurs when a Sith goes through a process known as bleeding the kyber crystal. And what this basically means is a Sith gets a kyber crystal that has already bonded with a Jedi or that hasn't been corrupted yet, and the Sith has to bend the crystal to their will, pouring out all of their rage and hatred in it, which was a very difficult process to do as the kyber would resist and fight back, usually through Force visions. But if the Sith was strong enough, they could fight against these visions and break the crystal, forcing it to its will, and thus resulting in the crystal losing its previous color, instead donning a red hue. But this isn't all. If a Darksider's rage was strong enough, they could quite literally break the crystal, which is what we saw with Kylo Ren, as when he bled his crystal, he cracked it, which resulted in a crackling and unstable saber, which, while looking very cool, made the saber beyond dangerous as the crystal had the possibility of exploding at any given moment. So to combat this, he would have a crossguard hilt, which helped keep the saber from exploding as it allowed the excess energy to safely disperse. However, this is just for canon. In Legends, it's a bit more interesting. As we already know, kyber crystals were found on very few planets, and most of them were often controlled by the Jedi, who kept a very close eye on them. This severely limited the options that the Sith could use to find a kyber crystal. Now, back in the days of the Old Republic, a Sith would simply kill a Jedi and take their saber as their own. But once the Rule of Two was enacted and the Sith vanished like my dad, they could no longer do this as it would blow their cover. So instead, they would use a much more ancient technique, synthetically creating kyber crystals. Due to these not being found or made by natural means, they donned a red glow once finished, due to the darkness that had birthed them. Now, after much time with experimentation, they would learn to create crystals that were capable of being other colors. But red kinda just stuck with them. It was the color of the Sith after all, not so much for the Jedi.
Red's not my color.
In the early days of these synthetic crystals, the blades that were produced were heavily unstable as their energy was raw and unrefined, causing a crackling blade similar to Kylo Ren. But over the generations, the Sith would use their alchemy to augment the blade to fix it and create a much more powerful version. Now, these advanced sabers were so powerful that it was said they could break a regular lightsaber, but this happening was very rare. However, the way a Sith could create a synthetic kyber crystal would happen in one of two ways, either following a YouTube tutorial or by pouring out all of their rage and hatred to mold a crystal born of the Force itself. It was a pretty similar process to how they bled the crystals in canon. However, in both canon and legends, it is still very interesting to see how the Sith followed and respected their forefathers, following their footsteps for lightsaber creation and refining their teaching. But you know what's even more interesting? Why the Sith followed the Rule of Two. To watch that video, make sure to click on screen now. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, it would mean a lot to me if you like and subscribe, as it would help the channel out a ton. Also, make sure to join my new Discord server. And with that, my fellow Star Wars nerds, may the Force be with you.